Hello, everybody. We are back on this Monday night, start of February, to discuss Survivor Grand Rapids. Ninth episode aired last week, Wednesday. We had a double elimination, so that was a big, juicy, strategic gameplay episode. So we're ready to talk about it. We're ready to get going. Sorry, we're running a little late. We have some hopeful technical difficulties coming, and we will get the show on the road. So without further ado, we have a new co-host that has been with me for the past couple, 8 months now or so. Please welcome Hannah Miller, my girlfriend, to the show. Hannah, how are you doing?
Doing great. I'm so happy to be here and be a part of this.
I am so glad that you are here as well. Particularly to participate in Survivor, because we don't know where the future is going to go with us, but I know that you've been doing your homework of our history. Not by me forcing you to watch it, by our own will. You've watched all of Survivor Dearborn and are caught up on Survivor Grand Rapids, correct?
Correct. I've seen every single episode there is.
What's your favorite season?
I feel like, I don't know, you can compare them, but I like the new era of Survivor just as much as the old era. There's pros and cons to both.
Okay. Any favorite players?
I mean, I love John this season. He just gives good TV. Charlie's a classic player. Matt's classic. They bring the diva-ness to the show, but I think everyone who's played has been great.
Well, those are some good names to drop, and I'm glad that you're fans of them. I'm glad that you're caught up, and I'm glad that you're here with us, Hannah. But we got to turn on our host mode right now and bring in our guests. So like I said, this was a double elimination. We have one guest coming in, our first juror of the season. So spoiler alert coming in for those who haven't seen episode 9. And without further ado, please welcome Samantha. Samantha, how are you doing?
Good. How are you?
Doing all right. So you saw your demise come to head in this last episode. How has life been since playing back in 2023?
It's crazy to think about what has even happened since 2023. I feel like a lot. We bought a house in the middle of fixing it up. It has quite a bit of work to do, so that takes a lot of our time. Still have the same job, so that's consistent, I guess. I got engaged to my partner who was there. He brought everybody aloe. It was pretty funny. But yeah.
Awesome. Well, we're glad to be here. We're glad to talk about your game. Very strategic game that I was really excited to see play out, and bummed that you were ousted that way. We have our second member of the jury in the behind the scenes. This is where our technical difficulties we hoped would pay off, because this person is coming in internationally, breaking up their bike trip from Colombia to Ecuador to speak with us today. Please welcome juror number 2, Magingo. Magingo, how are you doing?
Hi, guys. I'm doing great. Thanks for having me.
Of course. Thank you for taking the time to be here. Where are you coming at us live from?
I am in a city called Cajamarca in Colombia.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah, I just woke up from a nap, so it feels great.
Well, good morning. What time is it there in Colombia?
It's 7 p.m., so same as it's Eastern time zone, which is really nice. Yeah.
Okay. Well, that just shows how uncultured I am of knowing where our time zones are. So
No,
I'm
you're
glad
good.
that
I didn't know either, so.
I'm texting you back and forth like EST, just making sure you're clear. We're 7 p.m. So
You're good. I'm excited. Thank you for having me.
Mm-hmm. So we weren't able to debrief you before, and for our fans that come and tune in, we are doing our podcast recap. The first little bit, we want to hear from you and Samantha about your game experience, and then we'll talk about episode 9, and then we'll do our power player rankings with a little twist at the end of it that I will announce to the audience. But if you have to, fix your whatever Wi-Fi connection, just, message me separate. We can figure that out and just keep this podcast rolling. Sound good?
Okay, sounds good. Yay.
Awesome. All right. Well, hopping right into things. Both of you were on our original Vengeance Tribe, and I wasn't quite sure, how your paths might play out. That tribe specifically was kind of designed at the beginning to be a little bit more chaotic, and I think you guys blew that out of the water. Vendetta, I was like, this is going to be the strategic one. This one's going to be more of the personality gameplay type of situation. Samantha, I feel like on that tribe, you were a very strategic presence. What was it like being surrounded by some of those big personalities, at the very start of the game and then moving forward?
It's pretty interesting. I'm not a super loud or outspoken person. I tend to keep to myself, and everyone was quite opinionated, I guess, is maybe a way to put it. Tyler showed up in a blazer and a fedora. It was an interesting dynamic, and it was crazy to see all of these different types of personalities and the way they worked together, and who ended up aligning with who I thought was really interesting, and actually not what my initial assumptions were about everybody. But as much as it was chaotic, there was definitely still a ton of strategy. There was also a lot of fun moments, though. There was a lot of stuff you didn't see, especially the first night. We had, I think, the exact same tribe we went in with by the end of the first night. And the thunderstorm and everyone had a really great time despite all of the circumstances and being exhausted. So it was a lot of fun.
I'm glad. Magingo, how was your experience with them on the Vengeance? Did you catch that, Magingo?
Fuck, the Wi-Fi is so bad.
All good. Did you hear my question, or do you need it repeated? She's texting me separate. Our Wi-Fi is bad. She's gonna try the hotspot, so we can just keep moving forward with the.
How do I do a hotspot on this?
I'll remove Magingo till we get that up and running. We got Luke in the chat saying that he's a big fan of Samantha and Magingo. Luke, sounded like, yeah, these are your two allies throughout the majority of the game sitting here with us. And I guess, yeah, Samantha, could you fill us in on who you felt that you were closest with on that Vengeance Tribe, especially on day one, coming in my opinion, might have not knowing the most people. I feel like a lot of the cast knew each other, or at least knew of each other. What who did you gravitate towards?
I would say I gravitated the most towards Eli. Out of all of the really big personalities in our group, he was maybe one of the quieter people as well. He was still a really big power player, still very strategic, but we both kind of sat and minded our own business for a lot of it. So I really gravitated toward him as a person. I also knew a few people going into it. Tyler was one of them. We had a few conversations before. I had met Chase and Hannah, but they were on the other team, so I didn't really have too much of an opportunity to play with them. But, mostly Eli.
Okay, solid. Magingo, are you back with us? Maybe not yet. So we will put her on pause still too. So I guess, Hannah, what were your thoughts with Samantha and Magingo, I guess, or just the Vengeance Tribe in general? Like, what was your thoughts about their placement maybe in the game, and when did maybe they start breaking off into playing their own game, I guess?
I really liked watching you guys. I think Tyler is definitely a big power player, and at the beginning of the season, there was kind of like you guys won all of the challenges, so you guys didn't really have to really strategize all that much and have to vote people out that soon, but it was fun to watch how the alliances started to come about even when you guys were winning. And then once you guys won, it kind of was just like chaotic because like, okay, who are we actually going to vote out and all that. It was fun to watch, and I really liked seeing you and McGingo play, especially once the tribe swaps kept happening, and seeing you guys form your own game away from the original tribe.
Heck yeah. Yeah, I mean, the Vengeance tribe really had their own path, like a lot of those personalities just kind of kept bubbling up until you got to the point of some of those big votes, like that joint tribal vote where partners were going against partners, and you specifically, Samantha, flipped on, or you had no problem cutting James's throat. I'm surprised that little walk through the cornfield didn't solidify that bond a little bit tighter. I guess, could you maybe speak to that how the partnership played a role for you as somebody who really didn't know their partner at all at the start?
Yeah, it was actually almost a downside. So my whole plan going into it was to keep like my job, I guess, and me being a strategic person on the down low, and maybe not advertising to everybody that I was an engineer and got paid to think and solve problems. And then we stood in front of everybody and we were like, Sam and James are both engineers. And I was like, oh, well, there goes that plan. But I did really like him. The walk in the cornfield was fun. I felt like I maybe made a friend, but we didn't have a whole lot in common besides the fact that we're engineers.
Mm-hmm.
And if you've ever met a lot of engineers, we're not going to offer up a bunch of personal details and immediately like rub elbows. So we kind of just walked, had a very normal conversation. It didn't feel like it really solidified any type of bond, but I also knew that he was an engineer and that his intellectual strengths, and he's a big physical guy. I thought he would be a pretty big competitor if he had the opportunity to stay on, and he was not the type of person I wanted to do a individual challenge against. So when everybody was looking for someone, I had no issue with it being him.
Gotcha. So first of all, apologies for blowing that cover. I feel like it part of the production side of things, we had to really stretch some of those connections. You were paired with a couple people before we started getting going. For example, Mark Iannuzzi was supposed to, from Fresh Meat, was supposed to have somebody and play, and we were going to try to do like the Fresh Meat connection with that too, similar to how McGingo and Aubrey, knew of Sydney. Well, yeah, knew of Sydney, and you were referred to us by Addison, and I was wondering, what did he fill you in on? Was there anything, Survivor related that he gave you tips on and stuff?
Not really. He knew that I had seen a lot of Survivor before, and I heard a little bit about his experience and stuff. So most of the advice he gave me going into it was like, don't get in your head and just try to make friends. Like, it's okay. It's not the end of the world, no matter what happens and stuff. So there wasn't really any strategic advice at all going into it, but more of a don't forget to have fun type of advice.
I knew he said that one of his biggest pitches for you was that you were, a big board game player, a big, fan of like strategy and stuff. Did you watch Survivor at all going in, like the real show, or was it all just kind of like, so I guess, what's your experience with that?
I really liked Survivor for a really long time. I contemplated applying a few times, but never really got the guts to do it.
Yeah.
I really liked the earlier seasons. I haven't watched a lot of the later ones. I don't know why, but I feel like it's a lot less survival and a lot more social. Mm-hmm. And that wasn't my favorite part of it. So I really liked in the earlier seasons where everyone was really kind of rough and rowdy, and you didn't have all of these preconceived notions about what the right plays were and what the trick plays were. And so I loved it in the beginning. I watched probably every season up until a few years ago. Haven't been watching it recently, but I loved it. I really liked the water aspect of it too. I am a swimmer and I love to swim. And so getting to see all of those different challenges and stuff was something that I really enjoyed and always kind of dreamed of being able to participate in. So Survivor Grand Rapids was a really good opportunity for me to kind of live that out.
Did you think, I completely forgot, like your first confessional is like kind of talking about that experience of being a fan. It's one of my favorite first confessionals. I can't believe I forgot about that. But did you feel like, did Bad Blood, that cast, did they feel more old school or like that newer style of meta gameplay almost?
That's really a really hard question. Some in between spot, I think. So one of the really unique things about Survivor Grand Rapids is how many pre-established relationships there are going into the show. So you don't have everyone being a stranger like you do in the real Survivor. So a lot of those pre-established relationships give certain people like a leg up, but it also can be detrimental in certain situations too. But people having like the background of who certain people are and how they behave and if they'd be the type of person to lie or sneak around and stuff like that makes the metagaming a little bit more challenging, I think, because you have an idea of who everybody is and kind of what their tells are. But at the same time, it wasn't too much of the like rough and rowdy, but it was very hot. And it stormed on night one and there were mosquitoes everywhere. Tents flew away from the crew. So there was still a lot more of like the physical survival aspect of it than I had thought there would be going in.
Same on my end of things too, that we were not expecting a lot of those Mother Nature's, way coming for that season. I think Survivor, especially for Survivor fans, is really hard to kind of like, or Survivor Grand Rapids, I should say, for Survivor fans to play is hard to kind of navigate because I feel like you're playing the game, but you're also playing the game with people who might have not watched Survivor like ever before, or the only version of Survivor that they've seen is previous Survivor Grand Rapids or Survivor Dearborn. So they're almost like copying an off-brand version of the real thing. So it's very interesting to see navigate. And somebody who I feel like this season, I already mentioned that you came in with almost like the purest of like, this castaway really doesn't know anything, doesn't know the game. I think you played a phenomenal game to get to the point that you did, not knowing people, pulling off some big moves. I want to talk about some of those big moves. One of the biggest ones was flipping on Josh at that split vote, saving Luke and flipping that vote onto Josh. Going into the game, those partnerships was a big factor of that. Like, we gave the people that didn't know many people a partner. Some people capitalized it. You obviously did not, but no worries there. It's all about how you played the game. And you pointed the gun right at Josh and Hannah, the big perceived power couple on that side. Could you maybe talk through that move and do you view it as one of the defining moves of your game?
Yeah, so when we were on the Yellow Tribe still, it was very obvious that Tyler was running everything. And Tyler and I were working, we had agreed to be in an alliance with Josh. I think I knew I was kind of on the bottom rung of that alliance. I didn't have the same like pre-established relationships as they did. And so it's not that I didn't trust them from a game aspect, but I was aware of kind of where I stood in the priority of that group. When, like, right before we got switched, I had actually been having a conversation with Luke and McGingo and Eli about the threat that Tyler played and how much he was kind of in control of the situation, especially with the Josie vote. He was calling a lot of those shots. And I was happy for the most part to kind of stand in the back. I didn't want to come across like I was a bold person making a bunch of decisions pre-merge. I kind of wanted to lay low in the background, almost like be a floater, not tread on anybody's toes, but not make myself a target and do absolutely nothing. it was kind of trying to walk this middle line of just being a passive person who's there and happy to do what needs to be done. After the conversation with Luke, Magingo, and Eli, and we all kind of came to terms with the fact that, like, Tyler is the head of the snake. Tyler needs to go. Tyler's causing problems. It was also hard to see in some of the episodes, but he was also spiraling, like, hard. It was.
I don't know if it's that hard to see sometimes.
Well, it was making everybody really nervous. And so we were like, this is a good time before he gets too paranoid. We have to figure out what to do. First thing that happens is we get swapped. So I was really bummed to get swapped away from Eli. I think if we would have been on the same team, we could have been a really big power duo together. But I went with Luke and Magingo. The last conversation I had before I left when we switched to the other tribe was Tyler needs to go. I get to the other side. Luke and Magingo are the only people I've talked to. I guess Josh is there, but Tyler was kind of the person telling me that I was also in an alliance with Josh. I hadn't really had those one-on-one
like
conversations.
the voice box for Josh. Like Josh said that you're cool with him.
Yeah. So I didn't have a whole lot of trust in that situation. I knew I was at the bottom of that alliance and had the opportunity to stay with Luke and Magingo, who I knew were also not part of that kind of Grand Rapids group of friends who was already really close to each other. So when they proposed getting rid of Josh, I was like, this is a great plan. I probably should have kept that to myself. I think it was a great plan. I think we did the right thing. I think that was kind of like the start of a lot of turmoil. However, with the next swap that happened immediately afterwards, it was only me who left Luke and Magingo to go back to the other tribe. And with these being people that you kind of knew, kind of didn't, I don't know why, but I froze and I couldn't lie in the moment when I absolutely should have lied. When they asked if it was me who voted for Josh, I should have been like, oh, no, definitely not. I froze and said yes, which I think that is kind of what bit me in the butt moving on, because they knew that I had turned on that group. I still think it was the right thing to do. I still think taking that Grand Rapids group down one peg at a time was the only thing that was going to give anybody else a chance. I probably just shouldn't have been vocal about it following the next swap.
Yeah, I think it was the right move. And I think for you, and one of the cool things about being the host and being on the editing side of things is seeing where everybody's head really is at. And it's really hard for me to root for anybody because like you guys are all my friends. So I'm like, oh yeah, like do what's best for your game. And it's hard because some of the, Grand Rapids people, what's smart for them is to join all together. And then what's smart for you and Luke and Magingo and Zoe is to, rally against that. And so, Hannah, I know when you were catching up on Bad Blood, you were like, why are they just letting these people skate through the game? Like you're especially, after that Josh vote, but just particularly Allie and Tyler. And that plays a big role into this episode where Tyler almost gets axed, but he doesn't. And then Allie pulls a play to basically, flip the tables and get out Magingo. So Hannah, could you maybe talk about like, as a viewer, like, do you share this? Like, whose side are you on? Who are you rooting for in this gameplay?
I mean, I agree. I think Tyler and Allie are playing a great game, but they're also really running this whole thing. And I feel like it's not really giving other people a chance to fully play their game to the fullest extent that it could be. So, I mean, kudos to Tyler and Allie for really, really hitting this game hard, but I was really sad to see Samantha get voted out when it's the perfect opportunity to get Tyler out. And it seemed like Eli had the plan going, and then he didn't pull through with it on his end. And same with Magingo. I was like, oh, like I don't want to see Magingo go, but there's no other option here, especially since Allie ended up playing her advantage in the game. So there was really no getting out of that one either.
And speaking of Magingo going, I feel like I should update the cast that I don't think Magingo will be able to return. Her Columbia Wi-Fi has not been kind to us for this tonight's podcast. I'm asking if she'll send a note with a little bit of a update on her, and just sharing that information. It was good to have her for the time that we did, both on the show and on this podcast. So. Magingo, thank you for being here if you're tuning in. So wanted to update everybody, and I feel like we can hop into the episode and just start diving into that. We open up on the aftermath of Zoe's idol play on Magingo. So she played that idol on Magingo. She's surprised herself that, that she's still there, that Magingo's still there, and starts basically kind of outlining what that was like for her and how she got the idol, kind of doing damage control a little bit. And then Luke's doing damage control. Allie's doing damage control. Hannah, watching that back, I guess, did you feel like they needed to do that? I feel like it was a lot of information just getting exposed right there.
Yeah, I mean, I think it was a great play by Zoe. It was kind of nerve-wracking in the moment, since before that tribal, Zoe's name was getting thrown around, and she very well could have been voted out and played her idol on Magingo instead. But I think it was a great play, and it helped her and Magingo really solidify their alliance. But then with all the other information coming out and all that stuff, I think it was kind of tough to really keep their alliance solid and kind of be in the majority, I guess, of the tribe.
Samantha, you missed out on that tribal council. Did you foresee that, happening? We spoke with Brooklyn last week, and she kind of outlined that she was not expecting it. But I feel like in the context of the game, when you kind of break down who knows who, like Brooklyn felt like she was on the outlying side of that. So when she shows up at the challenge, she's not there. Did you think that, that much of a big move was played to get her out?
No, I had no clue. It was very fun to watch. That's probably been my favorite part about getting to watch it back, is the high level when you're playing, like, oh, this person went home, and you hear from other people of these people are aligned and these people aren't. But to get to watch the intricacies of it has been very fun. I knew that Zoe and Magingo specifically were very close. I knew that they were kind of in an alliance because we had talked when I was still over on the Green Tribe with them. I did not expect Zoe to play her idol for Magingo, regardless of how close they were. Just as a big, regular Survivor fan, that is always a critical error to play for somebody else. Very rarely does it work out in that person's favor, but it did work out in Zoe's favor. So I think it was a crazy move to do. It was hard not to scream at my TV while it was happening, though.
And I think this is a big episode for Luke too, in multiple ways. Luke did damage control going back to Zoe. I don't know how much of that was lying and how much of that is, what actually happened. I'm still trying to kind of reel through that a little bit. I think one of his big things was telling Zoe, like, hey, I voted for you because I thought that you would play the idol and that my vote would cancel out. And Zoe said, yeah, that's fine. And I think that just got swept under the rug, and Luke just moved forward with the two of them. I thought that was crazy. And then meanwhile, Allie and Sam are off on their self and planning what they can do with Allie's extra vote that she got from Tyler and the idol that she got from the OG Vendetta tribe at the beginning. So they're packing some heat moving forward, and they're all expecting to see Carrie coming in. So Hannah, what were your thoughts, I guess, on that aftermath? I feel like you were also messaging me that Luke seemed like he was being a little flippy floppy on that. But in the context of the game, did he make that right call of doing that damage control?
Yeah, I mean, if I voted for Zoe in Luke's position, I would probably be straight up with her and be like, hey, I voted for you, but I knew this was going to happen and I didn't think that you were going to be voted out. kind of thing. But then in the next tribal council for this past episode, then he just flips on her again. I feel like that was just kind of very flip-floppy of him to do and kind of threw me off a little bit, but Hannah was very convincing and got him to vote with her. So
yeah, we'll talk more about that play later, but it is curious to see how the game moves. And like, this is only within an hour and a half, 2 hours of each other of how that played out. Meanwhile, at something that you were also not privy to, Samantha, was the Exile Island, of everything that went down at Exile. You had you never went out there. Some people's opinion, that might be a blessing, especially our crew that was working relentlessly out there to get that footage. And we see Carrie doing a challenge where she gets an advantage that has not been seen before. This is something that I have always thought was something that could be played with, of our tribe swap advantage. I think some people just get dealt a really crappy hand. You know, you're sitting with us, Samantha, of a tribe swap, and it's really out of their control. And this was like something that I could put into the game to be like, hey, like, control your fate. Like, I'm sorry you dealt the wrong cards, but make a play. And Carrie ended up picking Tyler's tribe, or I guess the Vengeance tribe, for lack of a better term. But she chose the alliance that was strong on Tyler to work with. I guess out of the game, as a Survivor fan, Samantha, would love your feedback on that advantage. How did you think that played out, and do you think it was a good move for Carrie?
I do think it was a good move for Carrie, especially watching the episode back and kind of seeing some of the chaos and different canoodling that was happening on the Green tribe, not being a part of that, not being in on their earlier conversations, and not being someone to kind of define your spot in the tribe when that was such a pivotal moment. I think she did pick the right side coming over to the yellow, especially having worked with Tyler as a Survivor fan. You always want to go to the people that you trust. And so if that's where she felt her strongest alliances were, that was absolutely the right call. As far as the advantage goes, I thought that was really crazy and very fun. The tribe swaps were insane this season. I've never been a part of it, but having been a part of it, it was absolutely bananas. It threw a lot of wrenches in the game. It made people think really quickly on their feet. And I really liked the idea of giving someone control over that situation and allowing them to have more of a pivotal choice in determining where they go and how that plays out. So,
heck yeah.
Yeah.
Anna, you've been a little critical to me about these Exile trips. I feel like rightfully so. Some of them were a little repetitive with our Holden takes, and then John got to flip a cube. So this was I feel like one that they got to fight for, and that they got to, risk something for to do. Did it pass the Hannah check? Did I do okay?
Yeah, I feel like Exile Island, you really should have to work for the advantage that you could potentially get and why you got sent there. So I was really glad to see Carrie work for it and get it, and then make that great decision that she did to go to the Yellow Tribe.
Thank you. So, I mean, yeah, that was something that we also tried to play around with on the production side of things to open the curtain a little bit. We really wanted early on to play around with those blood bonds and see what we could do with that, and really kind of kickstart those storylines or that gameplay of building those connections. We see that kind of happen with early on in the game with Zoe and Chase having to exchange those idols. You see it with Josie and Carrie being partners and having to deal with that, and Carrie still dealing with those repercussions of that Exile trip. And then later on, as we started shifting, we wanted it to be a little bit more individual based. And so after we do that challenge, the immunity challenge, there was a twist where the winner, Luke, got to send somebody into the final 10. And so he sent John into that final 10. So we'll see what happens at Exile in the next episode, airing Wednesday at 7. But after that twist, they moved to their separate camps. Let's talk about Magingo's camp first. And go over that, and then we can dive into your experience with Tyler, Samantha. At the challenge, Carrie gets on Tyler's tribe and then sends Hannah over to Vendetta after a rock draw. And Hannah enters this strategy where she thinks that she's going to be on the outs of things, and she ends up being everybody's, bell at the ball, trying to strategize with her. Samantha, seeing that playback, did you maybe, I don't know, did you see that situation happening of Hannah showing up at the tribe, or, how did you maybe foresee that going, or was it not even in your peripheral because you were worried about your own side of things?
Yeah, at the time, I didn't have too much capacity to think outside of where I was and trying to save my own skin. But I didn't expect it to go the way that it had gone. I thought that Luke, Zoe, and Magingo had a really solid group. And I know that Hannah had worked with some of them before. I knew she was close with Allie and Sam. I think there was a few tricks that maybe could have been played out a little bit differently, but looking back with Allie having all of the advantages that she had, I don't know if there's really another way that could have played out. They were kind of a powerhouse duo, even with it just being the two of them. So I had a feeling it was probably going to go that way.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it was interesting to watch because we talked last week about how Allie just flexed her extra vote in front of everybody, and everybody knew about that. And so it really came down to what that split vote would look like. And I'm not going to lie, I was researching the rules on that and deciding what our rules are, if it was a split vote and if it were go to tribal council, how that split vote works. Still haven't really made up my mind of how we would want to play that out. I think what we would do is you get that extra vote on a revote if you aren't the one being voted for. I forget how the real show did it. I think it happened on New Era once. But New Era is a blur. I can't really remember much about it unless it's, season 46 or 47. So anyways, Allie's flexing this advantage. Magingo, Zoe, and Luke are trying to flip Hannah to go for Sam. Sam and Allie are trying to flip Hannah to go for Magingo. And I guess Hannah ends up picking her ally Allie and Sam because she doesn't want to piss off Tyler, basically. Heading into a merge, Hannah, what was your thoughts about watching that play out? I know, we've talked about the partnerships and basically letting Tyler and Hannah get more, or Tyler and Allie get more power. Was that the right move for Hannah? And do you think that was something that she should have been doing?
I mean, yeah, I feel like it would have put her in a bad position if she went against Allie, since she has been working with Tyler when they've been on the same tribe together. And even before they were on the same tribe, when they went to Exile Island together, they kind of made that pact that they would work together once they came together. So I think it was a good move, but it was just kind of frustrating a little bit because it was just fueling Tyler and Allie's game again and letting them be the driver of what's happening and kind of just letting everybody else fall off the rest and just getting voted out.
I think I think you're right on the money. It's a great move to I don't know, ride that power alliance at least one more round, maybe to safety of the merge that is very likely on the horizon. I told them all that they had, the jury was starting that tribal. What I think was a brilliant move was flipping Luke to vote with her so that it wouldn't be as divided and it wouldn't be as, finger pointing and resulting in Zoe being the only one on the outs. You said you were frustrated with them kind of gassing up Tyler and Allie. I think Luke might have been more frustrated that he had to be a part of that gassing up of Tyler and Allie and going for Magingo on that, kind of playing into that flippy flop game that you previously mentioned, Hannah. Samantha, seeing your ally in the game having to make that call, do you think that is the right call for Luke? Do you think that's the situation, or should he have gone back to Magingo and Zoe and tried to pull something else out?
I do think it was the right call for him. Kind of breaks my heart to say that because I was very much on the get Tyler off his throne game. But at the same time, knowing Survivor and people who weren't sided with Tyler were already in the very strong majority going into the merge. And so if he was able to have alliances and people that he thought would trust him and would be close with him, reinforcing those bonds going into it, I think was the right thing to do, even if it did end in him maybe having to flip on some of his previous alliances. I think it was the right call to increase his relationship with the people who were in power. I don't think there was really ever a point in the episode where Luke was kind of on the chopping block, so it was more about who he wanted to take into the next game with him. And I think he made the right call. I think it was a really hard decision. I know that in the conversations I had with Luke before I had switched tribes, he was not looking forward to having to side with Tyler at any point. So I can imagine that was a really difficult dilemma for him to have to deal with and decision for him to have to make. And I have no doubt that he probably put a lot of thought into it and did his best with the limited information that he had at the time.
I think you have to make those tough calls. His name wasn't up on the chopping block. He had immunity, so had a little bit of safety to play with there. And I think if that's the best case scenario for him to do, is just keep his head down and be a grunt until the right time to strike might come up. And I think that was a big part about Hannah's pitch to him was like, hey, like, this is going to not go well if we go against Tyler right now and vote out Allie or Sam, completely not knowing what was going on the other camp. Tyler might actually just be voted out and make everybody's problems go away. But she basically was saying like, hey, like, we can then flip the script and do something later. And I think that was what really kind of sealed it for him to do it, is just that hope. And I hate to quote Russell Hantz, but when he played his idol, he said, keep hope alive. And I think that's what Luke's riding on right now is that hope in the game. So we can talk about what goes down at Tribal, but I want to flip over to Vengeance and see what's going on. I realized that we neglected to talk about the legwork that you were doing leading up to this Tribal Council, where you had a conversation with Eli and reconnected with Eli and basically were like, hey, like, Tyler, let's talk about it. Could you tell a little bit more about that conversation with Eli? Did you know how like in with Tyler he was at that point? And yeah, maybe speak to that a little bit.
Yeah, so I had a feeling, considering that they were on the same team for so long, they probably would have had no choice but to develop a stronger bond. I knew they were already kind of aligned before the swap happened. I didn't realize how strong it was until going and watching it back. When I went to talk to him, I didn't know where he stood still. Like I said, he was probably my favorite person to work with before the swap happened, and so I was hoping to be able to get to do that again. I really just wanted to know where he was at, and I knew that I was on the block mostly because I admitted that I voted for Josh, which was so crazy. But either way, I knew where mostly everyone stood. I had been working with Aubrey a little bit, so that gave me some relief, but not enough to be fully comfortable in my position. And Eli and I did have a good relationship before I left. So mostly just wanted to see where he stood. During that conversation, I could tell he was hesitant of me, which was totally fair. I did switch on the people I said I would stay aligned with. So it was warranted, but I mostly didn't want to give away too much. I didn't want to tell him too much of what had been happening with McGingo and Luke. But before the tribe swap, it was me, Eli, McGingo, and Luke who had been having the conversations about Tyler. So even though I did vote against Josh, I did kind of have a reason to be like, I thought that's where we were, so that's what I did. I didn't get a whole lot of information. I knew that he was still very skeptical of Tyler's lead, but I could tell that he was also partnered with him. So even after that conversation, I wasn't confident in where I stood or what our dynamic was. It was very up in the air. So.
Gotcha. And meanwhile, Tyler is spiraling, for lack of a better term. He walks in on basically the entire tribe minus you and him, talking about how they want to go to the merge together with Tyler because Tyler's organized their alliance. Walks in on that conversation and then decides that a coup is coming his way, and then pulls everybody one by one, interrogating them. I know I only showed clips, but there are, 5-10 minute conversations between Eli, John, Hannah specifically. We saw that one play out of him, just making sure everybody's on the same page, trying to grill them. And that paranoia was real. Did you get pulled for a conversation, Samantha? And I guess, did you get to experience that, for lack of a better word, crash out happen in real time?
Oh, I don't remember, but I don't think so. But I remember watching it happen with everybody else and knowing that that was a problem. Because I didn't get the crash out, but everybody else got the crash out. So when I went up to him, he was with him and Carrie in the most recent episode and tried to talk to them. I could tell that Aubrey's name was just thrown in the wind, not real. They just said something. So I didn't know the extent of his coup beliefs, if you will, but I could tell that something was running amok and that chaos was definitely happening.
It's an interesting just spiral in general. I know Tyler was texting me separately and was like, honestly, like, besides that point, like, I just felt like in control of most of the game. And I remember I told him, like, I think you felt like it, but like that chaos was just raw on television, of seeing like the gears in your head turning and deducing that A plus B somehow equals Z, and somehow being right with that information. So, Hannah, watching Tyler pull people, watching Tyler, I don't know, get his hand slapped a little bit by Hannah and then proceed to, do more damage control of that. How did you, like, I guess, did that affect your thoughts on him as a player and him as like where he's at in the game?
No. I feel like him crashing out just would solidify my decision even more that he needs to go. Like, he's starting to lose it and he's starting to get a little loosey-goosey, I guess. So it's time for him to go. We can't have a liability like that on the tribe. So yeah, that's my thoughts. It would not have changed my opinion.
So speaking of, he surprisingly was so calm after the challenge and heading back to camp, thinking it was an easy peasy Samantha vote, and had no idea what was going on behind the scenes. And I want to stress, because I told people at the watch party, I told Hannah after she watched it, like, Eli was in the confessionals. Like, this was unedited. Like, Eli said that he was good to go with the plan until getting to tribal council. At some point in that, tribal ended up flipping. We'll see the reasoning behind that next episode. But the plan was in motion. And Samantha, you talked to the right people to get that plan in motion. Do you feel like that was more your move, or do you feel like Aubrey was really kind of fanning those flames a little bit, like pushing that too?
I think it was a group effort. Obviously, Aubrey was the one who I knew was still kind of not on the chopping block and in a better position to barter with people than I was. So I definitely wasn't the spokesperson for the plan. I wasn't running around trying to recruit people. I did talk to Eli about it. Didn't get a whole lot from him. It was actually him and Aubrey that really ironed out the details of that plan and how we were going to flush any advantages that Tyler had while also getting rid of Tyler when he didn't see it coming. But when everything first happened, I did bring up to Aubrey, like, I know that my name is being thrown out, but we should all really take a look at Tyler for a minute here, because he just lost John. He just lost Hannah. Those are 2 less votes for him. We've been talking about how we would ever potentially do this if there was the right time, and it feels like the right time, given it was still pre-merge. So in the event that I did make it through, I didn't want to ruffle a bunch of feathers and didn't want to run around seeming like I was spiraling, but I was very happy for everybody else to have those conversations and hope they benefited me.
I think it was a great team effort. Like whether you were a team that was on the same page, but it was a very good, like, you know, we have 15 minutes to figure out what's going on. You had the right conversations beforehand to get that train rolling. And then you kind of kept Tyler at bay while Eli and Aubrey, like you said, ironed out those details for this plan that eventually does not come to fruition, but it was a very solid plan. Where did Carrie play a role in this? Like, did you have a feeling about her? Because even editing, Carrie seemed very like, I'm just here. Like, I've been to Exile. I've been to Tribal. Like, my name's been brought up. I'm playing this low. Was that the vibe with her? Did you feel like you could even bring her in on the plan? Like, what was that like with Carrie?
I did not feel like that was something that I could bring her into. Like I said, there was the moment I walked up and Tyler and Carrie were having a conversation. I got the same lack of engagement from Carrie that I got from Tyler. And given the fact that she had picked the yellow team, I knew that obviously there was someone there that she was really close with and felt like she had an alliance with. And watching her throughout the day, she had the most conversations with Tyler in that 20 minutes when we had to figure out what we were going to do. So I didn't have a lot of faith that she would be willing to come to our side. She obviously had what she felt was something really strong, and going into a merge, it's a really tough decision to decide to go against that, especially when her and I didn't have a super strong relationship to begin with.
Yeah. Hannah, how do you feel Carrie played that round?
I mean, I think she's playing well just from everyone being on her back about the whole Josie situation and still kind of feeling those repercussions from the Exile Island trip in the beginning of the season. So I probably would have done the same thing to try to lay low, align with the people who I felt comfortable with, and just go with the plan until I feel like I could and she could probably emerge and do her own thing again.
Nice. And so we get to Tribal. We have a nice little conversation. It's Tribals with 5 people, or however, small numbers are my favorite because it's not just go in, clock out, get the job done, unless you're the Vendetta tribe who causes some chaos there. But it was the pieces were set to make a play, and it just didn't work out. And I'm curious, Samantha, without saying how like the rest of the season goes, like do you think that was a good move for Eli? Would it have been a good move to get him out at that moment? Like, what are your thoughts on Eli flipping last second? Because he keeps talking about using him as a shield. At what point do you dispose of that shield?
I think Eli made the right choice, all things considered. I think, I kind of learned my lesson a little bit about voting out Josh right before I had to face a bunch of people that thought I was aligned with Josh. If, John, Hannah, Allie, Sam, Carrie, everyone was under the impression that Eli and Tyler were like a unit. And then all of a sudden going into the merge, the majority is still with Tyler and they know that Eli is the one who flipped. I don't think that bodes very well for him. I think Aubrey was in a much better position to make that choice because nobody was under the impression that her and Tyler were like really solidly working together. I think it could have gone really well for Eli to follow through with it because there were a lot of people who kind of on the low were very excited to try to get rid of Tyler and wanted something to happen there. I think McGingo getting out is one less person who was very anti-Tyler winning. So I do think he made the right call in the long run. I think not making a bunch of enemies right before every single person has to face each other was probably a good call.
Okay. Hannah, what are your thoughts about it?
I agree, but it was just really sad to not see the plan come to fruition. Especially, I feel like that would have been like a big power move for Eli if it did go through. But I understand the reasoning of that. You don't want to face all of your other allies and have to explain yourself for getting the leader of the group out. But I could see it also being spun in a way that it was like, well, the rest of the tribe was against him and I just went with the majority kind of thing, or I didn't want to be on the out. So I don't know.
Yeah, I'm in the same boat. I feel like he had a lot to lose, and I want to give a lot of praise to that Vengeance tribe of you, Aubrey, and Eli for even considering making that move. I think it could have been very easy to have the conversation of like, well, we have Samantha who is on the bottom, or we have Carrie who just came back from exile. Like let's pick what's going on and move on with our day. So to consider aiming that high to begin with and getting to the point where it's a failed blindside is still farther than a lot of moves that don't even get made. So kudos to you guys. Samantha, you were a part of the jury, and then we head into the next tribal council where chaos kind of erupts, but the audience kind of is cued in on what's going on. Allie ends up playing her advantage and taking Zoe's vote. Hannah, do you think that was even needed to do so?
Honestly, no. Just from being a viewer and seeing how things were playing out, I feel like as much as I didn't want Luke to flip and go with Hannah and the rest of the group, I feel like he probably would have anyway. So I feel like Allie didn't really need to play that advantage because it would have just been Zoe voting for Sam anyway.
I think at some point in the episode, like right after Hannah gets to that side, she really kind of stresses like, hey, you're gonna you need to use that extra vote and like we'll target these people. And meanwhile, she then goes and flips Luke. So I think that just adds to a bigger move of her play. I also don't think Allie needed to do it. But also, I think for Allie's sake and her mind, she's locking in these votes and is moving forward, this tribal council, nullifying Zoe and going for Magingo. Samantha, at that point in the game, what I was surprised at when that was happening as the host, I love all my contestants equally. I was so nervous for Zoe to go out the way, that way after just pulling off an epic idol play. And I was nervous that they were going for her, but they ended up going for Magingo. Do you see a reason behind that? I know I guess, do you think that was the right move there?
Probably. Mostly because if you're about to go into a merge, you have to think about who's the strongest individual competitors, right? So people who's really good friends with everybody else, people who are really strong, really fast. And Magingo was an absolute powerhouse in challenges. So I think if they really wanted to win individual immunity, Magingo was probably the bigger of the two threats. And then Zoe was still close with other people as well. So I think it was the right call. I don't really know. I think either one probably would have benefited the Hannah, Sam, and Allie group regardless, because they were kind of on the outs.
I think it was the right call. I'm glad that Zoe was able to take a deep breath. I think part of that also goes into, Hannah pushing to get Magingo out was that she could work with Zoe after, that she could move forward. And Zoe's also a big threat being a returnee and having the resume that she has. And I think Zoe is a lot more forgiving in the game, seeing the way that she shrugged off the Adrian blindside. So, so I think that was a big move moving forward. And Magingo then subsequently becomes our second juror. So wrapping up episode 9, without spoiling, again, things to come. Samantha, what were you thinking as a juror? Who were you hoping to see at the end? Who were you hoping to not see at the end? And what were you planning on voting, at the end based on?
Well, at the end, I was planning on voting based on who I felt played the best game. Not knowing a lot of people really well going into it, being a really big Survivor fan, I didn't take anything personal. I don't think people should. It's really all about the love of the game. So whoever played the best game was going to get my vote, from at least what I could see. Obviously, at the end, being able to sell yourself and the choices that you made to the jury is a really big thing. So whoever made the best argument and whoever I got to watch do the best was going to get my vote. And then who I wanted to see at the end. I think one of them is Allie. I didn't realize until watching back how many power plays she was making, how upfront she was about everything. I had this idea that Tyler was kind of running the show, but I think Allie was just as big, if not bigger, of a power player, and she seemed to have her head on like pretty straight the whole time. So she was someone that I was rooting for. And then McGingo and Luke were the other two. I really loved working with them. They were also not part of the Grand Rapids group with me, so I felt really close to them. And then Eli, even all things considered, with the way that I went out, I still thought he was a really good Survivor player. I knew he really loved the game. It would have been really fun to get to see him do everything as well.
Awesome. Yeah. Hannah, going into the merge, who do you have your eye on, like as a fan, as a viewer? Who do you want to see succeed in this final 10 onward?
I would love to see Zoe keep going, even though she seems to be really on the outs after this last vote. I'd love to see her keep going because I think she's really redeemed herself from season 5, and she's playing a really great game, really strategic, and I think she's doing great. And I feel like I'd love to see Carrie too, to carry on with her great moves that she's making. I feel like the whole Josie situation is crazy because people think that she's lying, but then she's like, no, I'm not lying. And then she actually is, and everyone's kind of fooled. So that's really great to watch this play out, and I want to see her get pretty far.
Nice. And Samantha, something I always like to, I don't know, get out of it is seeing what was going on behind the scenes. You said Allie was kind of impressing you through the rewatch. Is there anybody else where we're at in the game heading into the merge, from watching these episodes back, that you're like, that person is playing a lot better than I thought that they were? You know, they have a lot better read on the game. Like anybody that stands out to you that that you've become a fan of watching back?
Aubrey is another one. She was really quiet. You couldn't really see the moves that she was making while we were playing. I didn't have a lot of opportunity to play with her on day one because she was on the Green Tribe, but she's definitely, I think, another one who's secretly moving in the background, doing big things.
Great. Awesome. Well, yeah, wrapping up episode 9. We're going over an hour, but that's because we had so much content to go over this episode. I want to head into our power rankings. So I mentioned that we have a little bit of a twist going on with this one because we had such a big episode. We're going to give out 2 1 points. So we're going to have kind of like a fourth, or kind of a tie for third place, and then second, and then first. We'll go in a circle and do our first tie for third place, and then we'll do our second tie for third place, second, and then first. So I guess, Samantha, starting with you, who is getting one of your 1 points for episode 9?
I think I'm going to give one to Aubrey. Like I said earlier, she was secretly making a lot of moves in the background. I think she has the potential to do some really crazy things. I just wish I saw more of that.
I agree. All right, Hannah, what about you? Who is getting one of your 1 points?
I would probably have to say Aubrey too, and I'm interested to see how she plays in the next episodes and the episodes coming, because I feel like since her and Hannah have been aligned and she voted against Tyler and Hannah is still kind of with Tyler, I think she has some explaining to do once the tribes merge, and things might get revealed that she voted for Tyler. So I think that was a risky move for her to do, and I'm interested to see how things play out.
I'll make a sweep. Aubrey was getting my 1 point before I even made the rule. I think that's just how you play the game. I think she, like you said, Samantha, earlier, she was in the position to make that move, and he threw her name out, and she, pounced on that as a reason to gun for him. And so I think she went hard. She swung for the fences. I think if she pulled out, if she made that play and her and Eli got it, I think Aubrey, as well as you, might just take up that top three. Eli, you, and Samantha getting this episode, but she didn't. But I still appreciate that swing for the fences on that. My second 1 point, I'm actually going to give to Carrie, and I think that is somebody that I haven't really given a lot of attention to, because I feel like there's so many moving pieces that she has just not been a part of. And so I want to take a step back, put myself in exile island, so to speak, and just look at where we're at in the game. And I think her going for it and going for that, that advantage, not knowing what it was going to be, and then capitalizing on it, putting herself on a tribe that, benefited her. She was not, for the first time in I don't know how many tribals that she attended, she was not up for discussion. She got to sit back, vote you out, Samantha, but she did not get any blood on her hands and did not have to do any backstabbing on this one either. So I want to give credit where credit's due. I love when somebody gets a good advantage and it plays off for them. And right now, I think, Carrie, that's tribe swap advantage paid off for you. So Hannah, what about you for your second number 1 point?
I would have to say Carrie as well. I've been a Carrie fan this entire time. I've loved watching her play and see how her game has played out. And I think she's a very strong player, and she's just kind of going under the radar now after the whole Josie situation. And I'm really glad that she's taking those risks and still doing her thing.
All right. Carrie getting another point. Samantha, what about you? Your second 1 point.
My second 1 point is Hannah. I think similar along the lines of what happened with Carrie, it's crazy impressive to have been swapped tribes and then 15 minutes before you go to tribal and her name wasn't mentioned once. Mm-hmm. Everyone else was already pointing fingers at everybody else. She managed to do some pretty crazy stuff and bring Luke over there. I think that was really impressive to not have your name on the chopping block considering the circumstances.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Who is going to get your 2 points? Or I'm sorry, who's getting your second? Who gets 3 points? Sorry, too many numbers in my head right now. I put too many rules forward.
Yeah, it's all right. Second place goes to Allie. I know we talked a little bit about her playing the advantage and if that was the right thing or not, but I do think it was. I think it kind of cleared her name and solidified her alliances. I think it was a really big play. Took a lot of guts to do it, and I've been really impressed with everything that she's been doing so far.
Awesome. All right. Allie getting some more points. Hannah, what about you? Number 2.
I would have to say Allie as well. I think she's really been flaunting her advantages, and it's been a very impressive thing to see where she's gone this far in this game with advantages, because I feel like having an advantage and people knowing about it can put a target on your back heavily. So, and how she's kind of managed to dodge all of those bullets, even though people know that she has advantages, is really impressive. And she played her one advantage and really solidified the vote to get McGingo out. So kudos to her.
All right. Allie getting some more. Feels like we're on the same page. I'm going to throw a curveball into the mix maybe and give my 3 points to Eli. I think he played it safe this round, but with how Eli's playing, like, we should have expected it. Eli's a snake in the grass or snake in the corn this season, and is, keeping his enemies close and his friends even closer, just to, flip on them, hopefully when the time is right. And that's what he's been preaching in his confessionals. And the time just seemed like it wasn't right for him. We'll see if the move plays off, but similar to what you were saying earlier, Samantha, like, if we're about to merge and the jury is starting, he's going to have to face, the crowd moving into that next round and not have that security blanket. So of that Tyler Allie spotlight drama. So I think Eli played it safe. I think objectively that is the right move 9 times out of 10 if you're in his situation. So Eli's getting my 3. And who will be getting my top spot? I am going to go 5 points on Hannah. I think that Hannah controlled that entire tribe. She controlled that entire narrative, similar to, again, what you said, Samantha, getting swapped, not getting a chance to talk to anybody. She comes in, figures out where the tribe lines are drawn, and then picks a side and flips Luke to be on her side too. I think she, played a part in targeting Magingo, as well as getting Allie to use that steal a vote if she didn't even need it. She knew where the votes were at. She could have easily told Allie, you don't need to use it. But I think that is her being able to read the situation, let the thing play out, and we'll see what the damage recovery will look like with Zoe. But I think she's in a similar position with Eli, where they both want to keep the Postma connection in the game. And she was just in a position to push that narrative rather than flip, and Eli went about it a little bit differently. You know what I mean? She was controlling that narrative, and Eli, Samantha, you were bringing him that narrative, if that makes sense. So that's what I think edges it out a little bit. The vote was in both of their hands. It could have gone either way. And that's why Eli and Hannah are both getting my first and second point. So enough about Hannah, enough about Eli. Hannah, what about you? Who is your top of the totem pole this week?
I would have to say Hannah as well, just for how she kind of maneuvered the tribe, and then flipping Luke is a huge, huge move. And basically everything you said, I would agree with.
Cool. All right, Samantha, round us out.
My top one is Eli for similar reasons that Hannah is, but I just think what he's doing is really impressive. I think he's putting himself out there when it's necessary and knowing when to reel it back. And I think that long game, that can be really beneficial, is kind of knowing when to strike and when to reel it in.
Awesome. Well, yeah, this was an exciting episode. A lot of game going on. I'm so glad that we had you here, Samantha, to discuss this with us. I had something that was really cool that I wanted to share, and I promise this had no effect on our rankings of today. But as you know, Survivor 50 is ramping up and doing their idol hunt across the U.S., and each state is having a little location where they have that idol for people to go find. And it's been pretty cool to watch play out on social media. And Eli shared with me today, he represented Survivor Grand Rapids and met season 47 winner Rachel and gave her a Survivor Grand Rapids buff. So Rachel, if you're watching, big fan over here. Represented Michigan on the show. I'm calling in from Cincinnati, but I'm a Michigan boy at heart. And it's so good to see that representation on the show. And if you do tune into Survivor Grand Rapids, I hope you enjoy it. So thank you, Eli, for sharing that. And very cool. I do also want to share something from Magingo, who did not get her Wi-Fi working, but she has a little notes, and it's a little long, so bear with me. But she says, "Hi, everyone. I'm so sorry I had to leave. Small mountain town in Columbia can't hang, frowny face. But anyways, watching episode 9 hurt my soul a little with everything I was feeling back then and how hard, challenging the experience felt. The craziness of being saved by Zoe and then trying to talk to everyone and prove I should stay in the game, and then finding out my alliance voted me out. Nightmare, nightmare, nightmare. But I would do that all over again and be with anyone any day over what I'm doing right now. Hashtag psycho." She is still doing her biking across the country. So, but it's good to do hard things. Dom, you're equally psycho, and what you've been putting together is incredible, and I'm grateful to have been part of it. Cheers. So Magingo, thank you for playing. It was a joy to have you on. And see your story come out. Magingo came in. She was Sydney's connection. Charlie on production said that she would be great on the show. And Magingo, I think, brought this energy of just attacking this experience in probably one of the most pure ways of, I'm coming out to play Survivor. She knew really nothing about it. And I think that was just infectious. Samantha, you too, coming out and playing the game the best that you could with the limited connections that you had. I thought you played phenomenal. I think people, watching, also felt that way. It was so good to have you on the show. Do you have anything to say about your experience? Anything you want to leave fans with?
Yeah, it was so much fun. If you ever have the opportunity to do it, you should do it. And Dom was a phenomenal host. Production was awesome. It was a wonderful experience, even with the heat and storms. I would do it again.
Yeah, I would love to do it again. We'll see what the future holds. I don't think I gave you your kudos yet on episode 8's puzzle solving. So fantastic job on that. Hannah, thank you so much for coming on and being a part of this podcast with us. This is a very long-winded podcast. So when we get off, we'll be, recovering with some water, and I'll get back to editing the episodes that we have left. But for everybody tuning in, thank you for tuning in. I will see you next week. And please tune in tomorrow night, or no, not tomorrow. It's Monday. Please tune in Wednesday night at 7 p.m. for episode 10, the merge episode. I'm sure you all want to see what happens there, and it might be one of my favorites that we've ever done. So not to paint the target too big on this episode or put those expectations high, but you might want to grab some popcorn, get a watch party together, because I don't know, we got some stuff cooking for you. All right, that's all from me. Thanks for tuning in. Everybody have a good night, and you can all head back to camp. Good night.